Ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Claudia Schwab, as Jakob Bilabel told you, and I'm head of the Environmental Protection and Sustainable Development Department at Deutsche Telekom in Germany. One of our main challenges in our CR, corporate responsibility strategy, it is the low carbon society. So last year we were applied to participate in the invitation to tender the greenhouse gas road testing, and we were very delighted to have been chosen. Experience gained from our participation proved extremely valuable to us, and they are a useful supplement to our previous reporting standard Scope 1 and Scope 2 in our corporate responsibility report. One of the stated aims we follow within the Deutsche Telekom group, and which provides the basis for our sustainability and climate protection strategy, involves the continual improvement in transparency across all the value chain. Let me now briefly outline the individual development steps that we have completed. I will first of all explain to you Deutsche Telekom's motivation for participating in the greenhouse gas road testing. In the next stage, I will present our key findings from our analysis, and finally I will talk about our next steps. As part of the decision to participate, it was important for us to find out more about the greenhouse gas methodologies in order to learn where the differences are compared with the standards used in the past. Initial insights we gained in this respect in the PCF pilot project Germany, conducted last year with the call and serve product. Another aspect was to gather experience regarding usability in practice. If these standards are not easy to use, and understanding of what is required in which process step, there will be problems with acceptance and also with implementation of the standards within the company. In addition, feedback regarding ICT-specific issues was important for us, so we could develop product category rules from this information in future. Particularly in the ICT segment, it is clear that comparative analysis can enhance transparency and understanding for carbon footprinting and for the benefits. One example is the comparison between video conferences and conventional business trips, where the advantages and the disadvantages quickly become visible. It was also important for us to analyze the utility value, since our aim is to establish a carbon footprinting methodology for our CR report that is accepted on a broad international basis. To this end, we need to find out about existing methods or methods under construction relating to the carbon footprint. In this respect, the road testing was very useful. Basically, however, we also wanted to check the content of the greenhouse gas standards so we could provide the relevant committees with feedback. Let us now turn our findings. The following 2 slides are just highly condensed results from our case study. Let me start with the results from the product carbon footprint analysis that was conducted on a high-definition video conferencing product from Deutsche Telekom. The outcome was that the requirements of the standards are applicable to our industry, and the instructions were useful for implementing the individual greenhouse gas process steps in the calculations. As expected, the use phase, as with all energy-using products, constitutes the hotspots in the value chain. Consequently, in this area was taken into particular account. As we did not have all the manufacturer's data, certain value chain steps could not be assessed in detail. Reasons include restrictions on the part of manufacturers, but also lack of acceptance for the future carbon footprint assessment methods. Primary data, we heard it before, were very difficult to obtain from the manufacturers. Therefore, the preliminary stages in the value chain, such as raw material, manufacture and production, and distribution, could only be calculated using secondary data with their associated tolerances. The secondary data was taken from the manufacturer's product data sheets. However, this could not be verified more precisely due to the short project duration. We assume that maximum values and not real measured values were quoted. That means additional tolerances may have been occurred. We don't know. Another important point was the absence of ICT-specific content in the life cycle assessment databases. Looking for data was the most difficult point in testing this methodology. Turning now to the results from company carbon footprint Scope 3. Deutsche Telekom has recorded its Scope 3 figures from 2008 as part of several pilot projects. These are being constantly processed further by an internal climate change group as part of the climate protection strategy and provide the basis for checking the Scope 3 standard. The proposed methodology on the Scope 3 accounting and reporting standard is applicable to Deutsche Telekom and provided conclusive results. The hotspot in the value chain can be achieved and subsequently managed. However, it also became clear that a reliable level of detail can only be achieved in cooperation with the manufacturers and suppliers. In our opinion, in order to increase transparency throughout the value chain, we need to know the CO2 footprints of suppliers, so we can include these details as primary data in our life cycle assessments. To ensure this happens, we recommend integrating the publication of CO2 emissions in the general terms and conditions of specific contracts. As a minimum requirement, suppliers should be asked for these figures right at the beginning of a business relationship to make them aware of the issue. A commitment to the Scope 3 carbon footprint across all industry is recommendable in order to increase transparency and thus allow the results to be assessed and compared within business sectors. This one? Okay. The third part of my presentation looks at our next steps for the road testing process. First, as I told before, suppliers should be obliged to a greater extent in relation to the product carbon footprint to provide the requisite life cycle assessment data. One option would be to integrate and obtain this data in the design process and in the technical specifications. Result of the LCAs must be also fed back at this point. Differences between the standards must be recorded and assessed in order to find the optimum standards for ICT-specific life cycle assessments. In addition, product category rules for the ICT sector must be developed. Aside this, we are continuing to evaluate ICT-specific databases with emission factors regarding the power mix, so we can develop even more effective product life cycles. As regards the company carbon footprint, we are working on extending the general terms and conditions and integrating the provisioning of Scope 3 data. What we need is a much more intensive dialogue with our manufacturers and suppliers. And on the other hand, we need a commitment across all industries to record the Scope 3 emissions in order to facilitate comparisons within the business sector. So these are the key findings. We need an accepted standard, and we need the cooperation and collaboration with our suppliers. That did not take place as we liked it in the first, in this testing, road testing, but we see now the benefits, because now the cooperation with our supplier, now it has started, to say it very honestly. It was a little bit too late, but I think it's a big challenge we have here to tackle, and we are on a good way, and therefore the GHG road testing was very useful to us. Thank you for your attention.